You're the biggest disgrace this family has ever produced. My father said it into a microphone while more than 200 wedding guests stared at me. My mother clapped. My sister laughed. Then my childhood photos disappeared from the giant screen and were replaced by one humiliating word after another. Divorced. Failure. Disappointment. They expected me to run out crying. Instead, I reached into my purse, unlocked my phone, and sent a single text that simply read, "Now." Less than 60 seconds later, the ballroom doors opened, and every smile in that room disappeared. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 34 years old, and according to my parents, I've been the family disgrace for almost half my life. Some families have a favorite child. Mine never even tried to hide it. My younger sister, Olivia, was the miracle, the star, the daughter who could do no wrong. If she brought home a B instead of an A, my parents insisted her teacher must have graded unfairly. When I graduated high school with honors, Dad shrugged and said, "That's what you're supposed to do." Nothing I achieved ever seemed worth celebrating. When my marriage ended after 6 years, they didn't ask if I was okay. Mom simply sighed and said, "I knew a man like Daniel would eventually realize he deserved better." Those words hurt more than the divorce itself. A few years earlier, I'd left college during my senior year because I couldn't afford tuition after losing my scholarship. I worked 2 jobs just to survive, eventually building a small business helping local companies organize their finances and operations. It wasn't glamorous, but it grew steadily. Today, I employed 12 people and had clients across 3 states. My parents never asked about any of it. As far as they were concerned, I was still the college dropout who had embarrassed the family. Then Olivia got engaged. Her fiancé, Ethan, came from a wealthy family, and suddenly my parents acted as though the wedding were a royal event instead of a Saturday afternoon ceremony at a luxury country club. When the invitation arrived, a handwritten note slipped out with it. "Emily, please don't make this day about yourself. We'd really appreciate it if you could avoid anything that might embarrass the family." I stared at that sentence for several minutes. Not "we're excited to see you," not "we hope you'll come." Just another reminder that, somehow, my existence was an inconvenience. I almost declined, but my best friend, Rachel, refused to let me hide. "You've spent your whole life shrinking yourself to make them comfortable," she told me. "Go, because you deserve to take up space too." So I bought a simple navy blue dress, had my hair done, and drove to the country club alone. The ceremony was beautiful. The welcome wasn't. Mom hugged distant relatives before acknowledging me with a quick smile. Dad shook my hand instead of giving me a hug. Olivia looked me up and down before saying, "Well, at least you dressed appropriately." I smiled politely. Old Emily would have defended herself. This Emily simply observed. As guests found their seats for the reception, I noticed a massive projector screen lowering behind the stage. Then my father stood, lifted the microphone, smiled proudly at the crowd, and said, "Before dinner, I'd like to remind everyone just how differently our 2 daughters turned out." My father's smile widened as he looked across the ballroom. "You all know weddings are about celebrating family," he said. "And tonight, we're especially grateful that Olivia made such wonderful choices in life." The guests applauded. He raised one finger. "But having 2 daughters teaches you something." A few people chuckled. "It teaches you exactly what happens when one child listens and the other thinks she knows better." Laughter rippled through the room. I felt dozens of eyes turned toward me. Dad wasn't finished. Olivia finished college, built a beautiful relationship, and today she's marrying an incredible man. He paused dramatically before adding, "Emily, well, let's just say she's given us plenty of opportunities to practice forgiveness." More laughter. Mom covered her mouth as if she were embarrassed by the joke. She wasn't. She was smiling. Olivia leaned into Ethan and whispered something that made both of them laugh. I kept my expression calm. Inside, my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. Dad motioned toward the projector. "We thought we'd have a little fun tonight." The lights dimmed. A slideshow appeared. At first it showed childhood family photos. Olivia winning dance competitions. Olivia's college graduation. Olivia's engagement. Then the screen suddenly changed. A black background appeared. One word. Divorced. Then another. College dropout. Another. Failure. Another. Family disgrace. The words continued changing every few seconds. Penniless. Forgotten. Bad decisions. Someone near the front laughed out loud. Another guest awkwardly joined in. Within moments, half the room was laughing simply because everyone else was. I looked toward my mother. She calmly lifted her champagne glass and took a slow sip without saying a single word. Dad grinned proudly at the crowd. Olivia stepped closer to the microphone. "Oh, don't be too hard on Emily," she said with a playful smile. "She's always been sensitive." A wave of laughter rolled through the ballroom. Then she looked directly at me. "Everyone, be careful." She smirked. She might burst into tears. More laughter. Even a few relatives who had watched me grow up avoided making eye contact. Not one person stood up. Not one person told them to stop. I realized something in that moment. They weren't laughing because I was funny. They were laughing because it was easier than questioning the people holding the microphones. Strangely, I wasn't angry anymore. I felt calm, almost relieved, because everything I'd spent years suspecting had finally happened in public. There would be no denying it now. I reached into my purse, unlocked my phone, opened one conversation, typed a single word. Now. I pressed send, locked my phone, placed it back inside my purse. Dad kept talking. Mom kept smiling. Olivia accepted another round of applause. 30 seconds passed. Nothing happened. Then, the ballroom's massive entrance doors slowly swung open. Every head turned toward the sound. The laughter faded almost instantly. Every guest turned toward the ballroom entrance. Four people walked in first. A woman in a navy business suit carrying a leather portfolio. An older man with silver hair. Two uniformed officers from the county sheriff's department. Behind them came another man pushing a rolling case filled with files. Nobody recognized them. I did. The woman scanned the room before her eyes landed on me. I gave the slightest nod. She nodded back. My father's smile disappeared. "Can I help you?" he asked, forcing a laugh into his voice. The woman stepped forward. "Mr. Robert Carter?" Dad frowned. "Yes. My name is Melissa Grant, senior investigator with the State Department of Revenue." The room became so quiet that I could hear glasses being set down on tables. She continued calmly. "We have legal documents that require your immediate attention." Dad looked around as though this had to be some kind of mistake. "I'm in the middle of my daughter's wedding." "I understand." Her voice never changed. "Unfortunately, this matter cannot wait." My mother stood so quickly that her chair scraped loudly across the floor. "What is this about?" Melissa opened her folder. "Our investigation concerns financial records connected to Carter Construction and several affiliated accounts." My father's face strained of color. Olivia stepped away from Ethan. "What investigation?" she asked. Dad answered before anyone else could. "It's nothing." The investigator looked directly at him. "Sir, we've spent 22 months reviewing financial documents provided by a confidential source." 22 months. A murmur spread across the ballroom. I remembered the day I'd discovered the missing company records. The false invoices. The hidden accounts. The taxes that never matched the books. 3 years earlier, I'd quietly reported everything after my father blamed me for bookkeeping mistakes I hadn't made. I never wanted revenge. I wanted the truth. Investigations like this don't happen overnight. They happen patiently. One document at a time. One interview at a time. One verified fact at a time. Melissa removed another envelope. As of this morning, several company accounts have been frozen, pending further review. Dad actually took a step backward. "No." The older gentleman beside her finally spoke. "I'm David Ellis, forensic accountant assigned to this case." He placed several folders on a nearby table. "We've identified significant discrepancies involving company funds over multiple years." My mother grabbed Dad's arm. "Tell them they're wrong." He couldn't, because he knew they weren't. Olivia looked from her father to the investigators, then slowly toward me. For the first time all day, her confident smile was gone. She whispered only one sentence. "You did this." I met her eyes without raising my voice.
No.
I shook my head once. I told the truth. For several long seconds, nobody moved. The music had stopped. The laughter had vanished. Even the waitstaff stood frozen, unsure whether dinner was still supposed to be served. My father finally found his voice. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "Emily has always been jealous of this family. She's trying to ruin her sister's wedding." The accusation echoed through the silent ballroom. For years, hearing those words would have crushed me. This time they meant nothing. Melissa calmly handed my father another document. "Mr. Carter, your cooperation is required. Refusing to accept these documents will not delay the investigation." He stared at the papers but didn't reach for them. My mother suddenly turned toward me. "How could you do this today?" she demanded. "Couldn't you wait one more day?" I looked at her quietly. "I didn't choose today." She frowned. "The investigation did." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. Because deep down, she knew the truth. This wasn't about one text message. It was about years of decisions finally catching up with them. Across the room, the venue's general manager approached my parents with an uneasy expression. "I'm very sorry," he said politely, "but our accounting department just informed me that the payment scheduled for tonight has been placed on hold." Dad blinked. "What are you talking about?" "The company card used for today's event has been temporarily frozen." A nervous whisper swept across the guests. The wedding planner hurried over, speaking softly with Olivia. Her face turned completely white. "The florist needs authorization. The photographer is asking who's responsible for the remaining balance. The live band says they haven't been paid." Problem after problem surfaced within minutes. Not because of me, because the financial investigation had triggered automatic restrictions. My father looked around desperately, searching for someone to blame. Finally, his eyes settled on me. "You destroyed this family." I took a slow breath.
No.
My voice remained steady. "I stopped protecting the lies that were destroying it long before today." An elderly woman slowly stood from one of the back tables. My Aunt Margaret. She walked across the ballroom until she was standing beside me. Then she placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "I believe things about you because they were repeated so often." She looked directly at my parents. I should have asked who benefited from making Emily the family disgrace. No one answered, because everyone in that ballroom had just realized the same thing. I had never been the disgrace. I had simply been the only person willing to tell the truth. 6 months later, the wedding had become nothing more than a story people whispered about. The investigation eventually confirmed what I'd discovered years earlier. My father's company faced serious financial penalties, and he stepped away from the business he'd spent decades building. My mother, who had always defended every decision he made, suddenly found herself living with the consequences she'd spent years pretending didn't exist. Olivia and Ethan quietly postponed their honeymoon. Within a few months, they separated. I didn't celebrate any of it. Victory doesn't always feel the way people imagine. Sometimes it simply feels peaceful. For the first time in years, I woke up without wondering what I had done wrong. My business continued to grow, and I finally rented a larger office for my team. We expanded into new cities, hired more employees, and began mentoring women rebuilding their careers after difficult divorces and family rejection. Every time someone told me, "I don't think I'm good enough," I smiled, because I knew exactly how those words felt. One afternoon, while organizing paperwork at my office, my phone vibrated. An unknown number. I opened the message. "Emily, it's Mom. Can we please talk?" I stared at the screen for a long moment. Years ago, I would have answered immediately, hoping this time would be different. Hoping they would finally choose me. But healing had taught me something far more valuable. Closure doesn't always come from another conversation. Sometimes it comes from accepting that you've already heard everything you needed to hear. I gently locked my phone and slipped it back into my purse. Then I walked outside into the warm afternoon sun, where my team was waiting for me to celebrate landing our biggest client yet. As we laughed together, I realized something. My parents spent years convincing me I was the family disgrace. The truth was, I had never needed their approval to become the woman they could never stop me from becoming. And that was the happiest ending I could have ever written for myself.